it's Sam from Sugar Spun Run, and today I'm making Italian cookies. This is an old family recipe that has been around for a very long time. It's a classic recipe, and I got it from, I was gonna call her my great aunt, but Janet is actually my grandmother's cousin. She makes these in very large batches, like hundreds of these cookies. I actually scaled down my version to make it a little bit more manageable, but in case you're wondering, this recipe does double very well. The recipe comes together super quickly, so let's get right into it. Get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, first thing you need is 10 tablespoons of softened salted butter. We are using salted butter because that's what Janet uses. If you only have unsalted butter on hand, you will just add like a heaping 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Just looking for a spatula here. We don't waste butter, so make sure that all goes in there. And get my other 2 tablespoons in there. This is 142 grams for those of you using weights. You guys are my people. All right, next you just need 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. This recipe, these cookies actually are not super sweet. They are a lot cakier than the standard cookie that I usually share here. Very tender, very melt in your mouth, but definitely a little bit more cake-like. So you can absolutely make this recipe in a stand mixer. Today I'm just going to be using my electric hand mixer. And I'm going to cream this together until it's light and fluffy. This recipe is actually a bonus recipe. I don't know how many of you follow along with my website. My website is actually what I kind of consider my home base. These videos are all supplemental. But I shared this recipe on my website like a year ago, didn't do a video for it because it's a pretty straightforward recipe. I was like, no, this year I'm gonna make a video for it. And my website is probably obvious to you, but it's sugarspunrun.com for anyone looking for it. I'll put a link in the description for anyone who wants to sign up for my newsletter, because if you're just following along with the videos, you will miss some of my recipes. They don't all end up here. If you're in my newsletter, you're going to see all of them. Okay, next we need eggs. We're going to add 3 large eggs to this recipe. Ideally, these should be room temperature. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try to be fancy and do the one-handed crack, which you should not do. Oh, I got shell in here. This is why you don't do this. I'm gonna take my chances because I'm trying to be cool. Same chickens, fed the same food. Look at that color difference. All right, we're going to beat these eggs into the batter until everything's really well combined. Okay, so I beat those eggs in until the mixture doesn't look piecey. It should look, excuse me, it should look uniform, and sometimes it gets a little bit lighter in its yellow color. Next, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of whole milk. We're also going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Just out of this. Oftentimes, Italian cookies will have an anise or licorice flavor. I know I use that in my pizzelle recipe. If you want to add anise extract, you can add, I use 2 teaspoons in my anise cookies, which are very similar to this. So I would say add 1 to 2 teaspoons if you like that flavor, which I actually do. Don't like to eat black licorice, but I do like that flavor in my Italian cookies. We're also going to add just a pinch of salt. It's about like a 1/4 teaspoon, probably a little bit under. If you used unsalted butter, I would just use like a scant 1/2 teaspoon total, because we talked about adding that 4th teaspoon or heaping 4th teaspoon earlier in the day. We'll go ahead and stir this together. I'm going to use my electric mixer and slide this out of the way. And in a separate bowl, I have 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I want to talk about the all-purpose flour, or how much we use, really quickly. I'm using 3 cups. I will show you what the dough looks like at 3 cups, and 3 cups is what I basically always use. It makes a very nice tender cookie that melts in your mouth but holds that nice ball shape. Janet will often use these to make shapes, like she'll make ropes and twist them and do things like that. It's very hard to do that if you're only using 3 cups of flour. So you would add more flour to get the texture, or get to a texture that's rollable if you're trying to make shapes with this. I usually can't pull that off with 3 cups of flour. We are also using 3.5 teaspoons of baking powder. That is not a typo or misspeaking or anything. That is how much baking powder is a lot. I do recommend an aluminum-free baking powder if you can get your hands on one of those. And there's no baking soda in this recipe. Please don't accidentally use baking soda. People do that on my biscuit recipe all the time, and then they don't know why their biscuits taste bad and they get mad at me. Baking soda and baking powder are not interchangeable. All right, we are going to gradually stir the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. I'll do this on low speed. And we'll scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl to make sure everything is well combined. And you'll see here that this dough would not be ideal for forming into shapes. So you would just continue to gradually add flour until you get a consistency where you can form it into shapes. Just keep in mind, the more flour you add, the more you lose in terms of flavor, because it's going to taste, more like flour. There'll be a higher ratio of flour. You could also add a bit more flour and then chill the dough. That will also help you some. I like the dough just like this. I'm gonna grab my cookie sheet and we can start baking. So for these cookies, I scoop them to be about a tablespoon in size. And I do like to roll them. The dough's gonna be a little bit sticky. That's really gonna depend on how warm your butter is. My butter was a little bit warm. And place them on a baking sheet. You're going to get quite a few cookies out of this. You'll get like 55 cookies out of this. I did just lightly flour my hands to help me roll these a little bit more easily. Where's my organization here? This is getting out of control. These cookies are not going to spread very much, but you still want to give them a little bit of room in order to breathe. Like an inch of space between the cookies. Since we're making so many cookies, it's nice to fit as many as you can onto one baking sheet. All right, we are going to take these over to the center rack of our 350 Fahrenheit, that's 175 degrees Celsius, preheated oven. They're going to bake in the center rack for about 8 minutes. You do want to take a lot of care that you don't overbake these cookies. If you eat them and they seem dry or crumbly or flavorless, they probably were overbaked. When they're finished baking, the bottoms are going to be very, very pale underneath. They shouldn't be like a golden brown. That's a pretty big sign that you overbaked them. Okay, so you're gonna let your cookies cool. You can let them cool in the baking sheet if you want, or you can let them cool for 5 minutes or so and transfer them to a cooling rack to cool completely. I have let these cool a bit. You can see what the bottoms look like. They're very, very light in color still. It's a good sign they were not overbaked. So Italian cookies get covered with a glaze, and Janet was always very clear that this is not like a thick icing. It's a very, very thin glaze. You just need half a cup of powdered sugar. We're going to add 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of milk, and we're gonna whisk these together until you have a nice thin glaze. I just did 1.5 tablespoons to start, and it looks like that should be all I need. This glaze just adds a little bit of sweetness. The cookies themselves are not super sweet, and it's going to help the sprinkles to adhere. So once we have a nice thin glaze, very thin, we will gently brush this over our cooled cookies. And after you brush it, just sprinkle with some Nonpareils. Those are my sprinkle of choice here. And that's how I always remember eating them as a kid, with Nonpareils on them. Just do a couple more. And this glaze will set pretty quickly because it is so thin. All right, that is how you make Italian cookies. I really hope you enjoy this recipe. If you try it, let me know what you think. They are a great classic Christmas cookie recipe. I love making them every year. Super easy if you enjoy these. Also, make sure you check out my pizzelle recipe. I think you'll like that one too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. That is a good cookie. If it's not good, you probably overbaked it. I cannot stress enough how much you don't want to do that. Luke's starting to work. Man, kid, when are we gonna get you a haircut?
Never.
Didn't we brush your hair today?
Yeah.
Okay, look like a wolf. You excited for Christmas?
Yeah, are you?
Yeah, always. So looking good. Do you like these cookies?
Yeah.
Me too.